it's really difficult because familial trafficking is something that is taking place
Mhm.
within families today. It is taking place within our neighborhoods. It's taking place within suburban areas, within metro areas. And so I really think it's something that people don't talk about because their mind does not want to go to the horrors of that reality. But the reality is that familial trafficking is real and familial
Yeah.
trafficking is happening.
Yeah, I know the sun is down, but I really didn't want to put my jammies on and head to bed without getting this off of my chest, guys. Human trafficking is huge. It's ginormous. It's a massive industry that affects anywhere from women, children, men, to even babies. And I know some of you watching this are thinking, Drea, I know this, but I'm starting to see signs that are indicating that many more than I once expected just don't know how devastating this rape industry really is. Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News. And as you know, here at Rebel, we report the other side of the story. Now, I'm very sad to say that issues like human trafficking are the other side of the story. They are grossly underreported, and that's not okay. According to USA Today, profits from forced sexual labor are estimated at $99 billion worldwide. And not only that, profits are highest per sex trafficking victim in developed economies. Now, a few hours ago when the sun was out, I interviewed Jessa Dillow Crisp, a warrior, a mentor, a survivor of human trafficking that started on Canadian soil. But before I let you hear from Jessa herself, I want to say thank you. I want to start by saying thank you to you for clicking on this video because so many people will let it pass by. I also want to thank those of you who will be so bold to share this video so that you and I and the Rebel team are helping to raise awareness for human trafficking. So enough of me babbling on. Let me introduce you to Jessa herself because you're going to want to get comfy, grab a coffee, and watch this from start to finish. All right, Jessa Dillow Crisp, thank you so much for dedicating some time, and I know what must be your busy schedule, to raise awareness about something we are very concerned with at Rebel News. And before you dive into your story and what's happened to you, I want to talk a little bit about who you are today. You're the founder of BridgeHope. So can you just tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, totally. I would love to. So BridgeHope is an anti-trafficking nonprofit located in Denver, but we work with survivors of human trafficking all around the world, in Canada as well as in the US. And we also have a partner in Kenya. And what we do is we bridge resources and we foster hope to survivors of human trafficking.
Wow. See, I wanted to start with that because you're such a survivor, and your past, although it's brought you to be who you are in some ways, it's not who you are, and I know you've shared that message before, so I loved leading with that. But you've been through some things that no one should ever be through, and let's just start there. Let's start with the beginning of the first time, because this has happened to you more than once, but the first time that you ended up in a world of human trafficking.
Yes, so the first time that I ended up in a world of human trafficking, it started with something called familial trafficking. So familial trafficking is when trafficking is taking place within the familial system. So it could be an aunt trafficking a nephew. It could be a brother trafficking a sister. It could be a father or a mother trafficking their children. It could be a grandpa or a grandma. And so within familial trafficking, specifically within my story, my trafficking started actually with sexual abuse at a very young age. And then that moved into child pornography. And then that moved into me being sold throughout my neighborhood. And I'm actually a Canadian. I was born in Toronto, Canada. And that is very much part of my childhood existence. That's how I saw myself. I saw myself as dirty. I saw myself as somebody who did not have any value other than to be abused, other than to be molested and to be just completely defiled in every single way that one could imagine. During that time, I was not allowed to go to school, so there's
Wow.
memories that I have of standing at my bedroom window and looking outside across the backyard, and there's actually an elementary school that just lay beyond my place where I was living. And I remember seeing the kids walking to and from the their homes within their neighborhoods. I don't necessarily know. There's just a lot of kids because it was a school. And I just remember the intense desire that I had to go ahead and to be somewhat like them. I wanted to go ahead and have a backpack that I carried instead of having to go ahead and do the horrific things that I was made to do. And so very much continued on, and that her is very much just repeated throughout the years. And it's really hard for me at times to even know what year was what, just because everything just blended together into
Wow.
just such trauma.
I can't imagine. So you said it started with the family. Was it one person or was it multiple people within the family?
You know, within my family system, it was several people within my family system, and it was very normal within my family system, and that was something that I just thought was what other kids were experiencing. And so it's it's really difficult because familial trafficking is something that is taking place
Mhm.
within families today. It is taking place within our neighborhoods. It's taking place within suburban areas, within metro areas. And so I really think it's something that people don't talk about because their mind does not want to go to the horrors of that reality. But the reality is that familial trafficking is real and familial
Mhm.
trafficking is happening. One of the things that we often see is um, within rural situations and settings, we see actually a higher prevalence of familial trafficking because it's easier to go ahead and
Yeah,
kind of cover up the traumas taking place, the
right.
abnormalities that one might recognize, but one might not really recognize because you don't see people enough. But then also, too, within metro areas, we see a lot of pimp control trafficking taking place, which on one hand, it creates a cycle where one who's experienced familial trafficking can become vulnerable to other types of trafficking too, which is also part of my story.
Yeah, it's a cycle, and I know some of your story, so we'll get to that in just a second. And it's relevant. I mean, we have viewers from all over the world, and subscribers from all over the world, but this is Canada. This is in a place where, in my opinion, many don't really think it's this huge issue. I mean, even our own prime minister, not too long ago, just a few months back, defunded, some of the organizations that are helping with people like yourself, human trafficked victims. And, one of them even had to shut down. And so, how did it go from the familial trafficking to something else?
Yeah, that is a big question because I see it as a process. I see it as a journey. And if it's okay with you, I would love to share part of that story.
Yes, please do.
So when I was around, it was, gosh, I was around 21 and I was at a hotel in Kansas City. So part of my trafficking was I was trafficked within Canada, but then I was also taken into the US. And there was kind of like a circuit that was utilized within the trafficking. And I was in Kansas and was at a hotel when a woman who saw and recognized the signs and symptoms of one who is being trafficked, she reached
Hmm.
out to me and she said she could help me if I wanted help. And so I actually went ahead and memorized the phone number that she gave me. And when I was back in Canada, I actually very boldly made that phone call, and it was really scary. I was scared for my life. I was scared for the consequences that could ensue if somebody knew
Wow.
what I was
Mm-hmm.
doing. And
Mm-hmm.
um, that phone call truly changed my life forever, because she, on that first time I talked to her, she told me that sex did not need to define me, that as an adult, I could make my own choices. So, but she told me that as an adult, I could make my own choices. And then
Mm-hmm.
she told me that if I wanted help, that she would continue to help me. So that started
Wow.
a phone call, like conversations. And eventually she was the one who helped me put together an escape plan. And then not only did she help me put together that escape plan, but then she was also the one, when I escaped, she actually had a safe house in Colorado. And that's how I
Mm-hmm.
got from Canada to Colorado. And Colorado is my home now. But I had a visa. I had a tourist visa when I first entered the
Mm-hmm.
US. Um, and that tourist visa was 6 months long. And with that tourist visa, I could only be here, like I said, for 6 months, which created a lot of question marks as to what I was going to do after that when it expired.
Right.
And so eventually made the decision, after looking at different resources available in Canada, which at the end of 2009, there was not that many resources available. When you look at how much human trafficking is talked about today, it's a
Mm-hmm.
vast difference than 10 years ago. And I ended up in Vancouver and entered a program. And yeah, I was there for 3 weeks, and then it shut down because the 2010 Winter Olympics, as you guys know, started. And
Yeah.
yeah, all I can say is that I had 12 hours to find a new place to live. And through
Wow.
a series of events, I ended up homeless. And yeah, like even just like right now sitting here, like as I let my mind go back to like how I felt in that
Mm-hmm.
moment, just a lot of like pain, because it's neat that you are speaking from Vancouver and you're in Vancouver. And yeah,
Yeah.
Vancouver also holds just a lot of trauma for me as well.
Wow.
And yeah, I also see just so much beauty as people 10 years later are beginning to realize the traumas of human trafficking and wanting to stand up to find a way to go ahead and help victims. And so
Absolutely.
with my experience, with being homeless, I did a really good job staying safe for the first little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm pretty street smart, but not only that, not I was in a new place, a new city that I had never been in previous. But yet people had already briefed me, like some friends and people that I had gotten to know, had already briefed me about like the safe places, so don't go to the east side kind of thing.
Yeah.
And also to brief me on the pimps to go ahead and avoid. And yet, the closer we got to the Olympics and the more people that were entering the city, the the scarier it got for me, just because
Mm-hmm.
now I have a lot more people around, and I knew the people to avoid previously. But
Right.
who do I go, like, this is getting, like, for me in that moment, it just became a moment of confusion, not because I didn't know how to take care of myself, but
Right.
because who's safe and who isn't safe. And with that, I ended up actually being at a church in um, downtown. And I was there. The Olympic Church was being run through the city, and this
Mm-hmm.
particular location, this particular place actually had a pancake breakfast taking place. And I was hungry, and I love pancakes. So one thing about me is pancakes make me happy. And so I got a huge plate of pancakes and got my orange juice. And yeah, it was actually there that I had somebody come up to me, and that person said that they could see I had experienced abuse, that I had abuse written basically across my forehead. And that really shocked me. I was like, what? Like how can you tell? And they told me that they too had been abused and that they too
Mm.
knew what it was like, which for me created a place where like my barriers came down. And
Yeah. Of
um
course. Yeah.
yeah, it was not a good situation.
Oh, there's just so much in that. Now, so I'm going to talk about that point, but you mentioned the Olympics. And the Olympics is actually the Vancouver Olympics. It's actually when I first became aware that there was a big human trafficking issue across the world and in Canada. And that was the first time I ever advocated for anything like that. Was during the Olympics, because I had been told, and just in case I'm saying the wrong organization, because I've done quite a few things now, but I believe it was Salvation Army. A group of us came, and if I'm wrong, we'll put it on the screen, but a group of us came, and we were out there every night during the Olympics raising awareness for the fact that there had been this demand for people to be trafficked, for the people who were coming across the world, and it was just disgusting and infuriating. Is that what you were kind of leading at? Is that what you were saying about it was getting scarier for you towards the Olympics?
Yeah, it was one of those things where when people have briefed you on who to avoid, like the pimps to avoid and the
Mm-hmm.
Johns, I don't like using that terminology, but it's referencing buyers, the buyers to avoid. Now we have this influx of people who are present, and I don't know what tricks are going to be like life
Right.
threatening. And for people who don't know what the terminology trick stands for, it's basically a term to go ahead and define basically what the acts that would take place in a trafficking situation. So it was one of those places where like things got scarier for me as a victim during that time, because I didn't know like who was safe or who wasn't safe. I didn't know like when something would go bad. I didn't know like who would go ahead and hurt me the most, or like who would try to like take my life. And so um,
Wow.
all of that to say was like I didn't like in the midst of that, it was just really hard. And so I wasn't like I was able to keep myself safe, and I
Mm-hmm.
was not in the life at that time when I first went ahead and left the safe house, and like I was able to keep myself safe. But as people were coming into the city, I got scared. And yet my fear did not protect me from the coercion that was about to come.
No. So you're saying, you got this nice pancake meal,
Hmm.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying sort of a wolf in sheep's clothing came into the church, right? And something that stands out to me is you're saying she could see. She could see the signs of abuse written all over your face. And I believe it because as you're saying, she's part of the problem. But the problem with this topic not getting the coverage it deserves, and parents and just anybody not getting the awareness, is that you have people, even parents, who have vulnerable children who don't know the signs. You have the problem seeing it from a mile away, entering a church and saying, that's who I'm going after. And then you have uncle doing God knows what with your own child. And because this hasn't been getting the voice it deserves, no one can see it. So thank you so much for what you do. So this lady kind of took you under her wing, and then you ended up in that world again, right?
I did. Unfortunately, she actually turned out to be a pimp, and through force, fraud, and coercion, I ended up being put back into the life, and it was devastating. I'll never forget just the way that she encouraged me to go out and become friends with her. We watched some of the hockey on a big screen TV together. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I really thought, like, here I am in this big city all by myself, and I'm lonely, and this person wants to be my friend, and she wants to help me, she wants to protect me. And then there came a evening where she asked if I'd want to go out for dinner with her. Once again, food was an area of vulnerability in my life, so I was
Mm-hmm.
hungry. And so not only did I have the vulnerabilities of my past exploitation, my past abuses, and the vulnerability of being homeless and being alone and in a city by myself. But now I have this vulnerability also of food. And she took
Mm.
me out for a meal. And in that meal, she told me
Wow.
that she loved me. She told me that she had multiple homes of girls just like me, but that I was her most
Wow.
favorite. She told me that my hair color needed to change, my eye color needed to change, all for my protection. And that was just the beginning because um, it was one of those things where I was given a choice and I made a choice. Neither choice was optimal, neither choice was a good choice. And I went back to her apartment thinking, oh, we're going to go ahead and just watch another hockey show together. Like, not a show, but you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
a hockey game with the
Mm-hmm.
Olympics, and that got me really excited because like I've been knowing this person for like how many days or like
Yeah.
whatnot. And
Right. You trusted
um
her.
yeah, I did. And in the midst of that, that was when I ended up being gang raped. And then I was told a bunch of threats, and I very much in a nutshell was churned out, which is terminology within the game to go ahead and say that I had to start working for her.
I want to end it on what we can do and what are the signs? What are the signs that parents or just anybody around children or even women or even men, right? This is it's not just women and children that this happens to. So what are some of the red flags that we should look for this type of thing?
Yeah, so you could get me talking for hours talking about this, but I'll create a shorter list and then I'll just encourage people to go ahead and to reach out to us at BridgeHope because we can go ahead and send you. We have multiple red flag handouts for
Oh, great.
boys who have been trafficked, for medical indicators and medical red flags of individuals who've been trafficked. We also have
Mm-hmm.
environmental indicators of trafficking, general red flags. We have red flags for individuals who work in educational systems and for parents. So this is something that needs to be very much looked at through the
Right.
lens of the profession and the job, because that is very much necessity when it comes to being able to identify it within one's sphere of influence.
Mm-hmm.
But generally for parents, for individuals who have kids, I would really encourage you to go ahead and first and foremost, I would encourage you to have conversations with your kids about
Mm-hmm.
exploitation, about being able to know what healthy relationships are, what consent is, and then not only have one conversation, but have multiple conversations. This is something that one doesn't go ahead and automatically change an experience overnight, but
Mm-hmm.
rather this is very much a process of relationship that needs to happen within safety and within safe relationships. But
Right.
beyond that, one of the things that we see is if a child has multiple cell phones, that could be a red flag.
Oh.
And so being able to go ahead and recognize that. So I tell other kids that, do you know any friends? Do you have any friends that have 2, 3 cell phones? And
Oh, wow.
I go to high schoolers. Oftentimes I have about a third of the high schoolers raise their hand concerning to me, because oftentimes cell phones are such that I have a cell phone here, they're expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
oftentimes,
yeah.
yeah.
I got a teen and she's lucky she's got one phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they're expensive to go ahead and have them on
Yeah.
plans, like, but yeah, if somebody has multiple cell phones, what are they trying to hide, and
Exactly.
what is the purpose of that? Who went ahead
Mm-hmm.
and gave that to the person? Multiple computers. Once again, who gave that to them? What are they trying to hide? Excuse
Mm-hmm.
me. Have a cough.
That's okay. COVID. Just joking.
Goodness. Sorry. I might
That's
cough
okay.
again. My throat's really dry and I don't have my water. Um, So multiple cell phones, multiple computers. Also too, if you notice a sudden drop in grades or if your child is suddenly tired, I know of kids who were actually trafficked while they were still in school, while they were living in their parents' home. It was at night that they would go ahead and they would sneak out of the home. And because of
Right.
coercion, whether it's through pictures that have been sexted, once again, good conversation to have with your kiddos,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
create open doors of communication. But through the like escaping during the night to go ahead and turn tricks and then going back to bed early in the morning, nobody knows that they've been gone. That will create
Wow.
a child who's super tired. If a child is super
Mm-hmm.
tired, then they're not going to do so well at school, most likely. And it's a continual spiral. It probably will lead into depression and anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
other mental
Mm-hmm.
health struggles, other physical struggles. And so then it becomes very much a systemic issue that one thing then is leading to another thing. Also, too, addictions is something that I encourage parents to look for because oftentimes I have to go ahead and tell parents like where the kids getting the substances, the alcohol that they're using, and um, money if they have an allowance most likely isn't covering all of it depending on how much
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah.
But yet if sex is being exchanged for those substances, for alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
then it could go ahead and fit into a definition of human trafficking depending on the situation. So that's definitely something that I encourage parents to look for and to engage with. Once again, keep communication open, because if you can go
Mm-hmm.
ahead and
Mm-hmm.
keep that communication open, then you can go ahead and have honest conversations with your kids about this kind of stuff. Your kids have seen so much hard stuff at school, within life, within society, that these conversations aren't going to be shocking to them. Definitely do so in age appropriate manners, and
Right.
BridgeHope can give tips on that. But very much communication I see is a preventative tool. Um, Other signs and symptoms, definitely we see kiddos with extreme mental health struggles,
Mm-hmm.
dressing in clothing that's not appropriate for the weather. So seeing a kid wearing a short skirt with bare legs and
Mm-hmm.
sleeveless top when it's super cold outside, like below zero, like that doesn't match the weather.
No.
And I have
No.
seen that. So definitely should raise red flags. One of the things that I tell individuals is that you need about 3 to 5 red flags to go ahead and put pieces together. And you're not the detective. So if you go ahead
Right.
and recognize things that are disturbing to you, go ahead and reach out to individuals that you know have been trained in trafficking, who can go ahead and walk you through next steps, and go ahead and advocate for organizations, for schools, for yourself
Mm-hmm.
to get education, because you hold the power to not only change the life of the kids in your generation and the generation that's taking place around you, but I believe you have the power to change society.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for choosing to do this interview with, with me being in the Vancouver area. I know that must have been so hard and stirred up some things. So thank you for that. I believe good things will come from this video. I know good things are coming from your organization. So let people know how they can connect with you and your organization.
Totally. So people can go ahead and look us up online. Our website is www.bridgehopenow, so NOW.org. And we are also on social media at BridgeHope Now. And then people can also go ahead and find me. I have my Instagram handle at Jessa Crisp Official, and you can also reach out to me there, and I can go ahead and connect you to BridgeHope and resources that you might need.
All right, Jessa. Well, I hope we keep in touch and bless you for all that you do.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
I love that with Rebel News, I am free to cover important stories like Jessa Crisp's, even if mainstream media outlets like Global News would rather dismiss those wanting to raise awareness about such things as conspiracy theorists. Now, if you want to be a part of helping us report the other side, as well as keeping up to date when we do, you can head to rebelnewsplus.com. We appreciate your support.